Well, Taylor Fritz had his chances against Novak Djokovic last night. But honestly, even if Fritzy boy had won that first set, do you really think and assuming he won the second set as well, do you really think he would have won that match? Just would have been another 2 sets down comeback for Novak most likely. But Fritz had his set points in that first set. Of course, it came down to a tiebreak. Tiebreak quickly got away from Taylor Fritz. And then at about 5-1, I think, we had this beautiful moment in tennis history. We don't want to stay cross-court back into backhand with the Joker too long. Banging it. Kick it up a notch. Change direction. And there's the slice.
That's a good shot. The old left leg slide on the two-hander. And Novak wants to hear it.
Well, how did we get here?
And he's hearing it.
He's blowing kisses to Kyrgios in the commentary box. Have we ever seen that?
I don't think we've ever seen that.
So how did we get here? Nick Kyrgios, he used to talk trash about Djokovic, said some of the meanest things that you ever heard from any player on tour about Novak Djokovic. They hated each other. I know when Djokovic got deported from Australia, Kyrgios was one of the few people willing, especially few Aussies, willing to speak up and stand up for Djokovic. I know that was the main reason things changed. But still, it's just bizarre to see that clip. Now they're having a bromance. Now they love each other. They can't get enough of each other. Djokovic blowing him the kisses. Encore interview was with Kyrgios. Asked him about the tree. Djokovic told him the secrets of how he can climb up in that tree and hang upside down for 33 minutes and 3 seconds and win a Grand Slam. Some people are saying maybe Djokovic is going to retire and coach Kyrgios to win a Grand Slam. How did we get here? I just want to say, in a microcosm, I think this is reflective of what's happening in the larger tennis world abroad, right? People from around the world, tennis fans, tennis players alike, I think are finally starting to recognize the excellence of Novak Djokovic, the sustained excellence that we've seen from Novak Djokovic over the years, and they're recognizing that greatness. And people who even maybe used to hate him are starting to appreciate and maybe, dare I say, like Nick Kyrgios, love Nole Djokovic. Love him, maybe. Anyways, moving on from that. People say I talk about Djokovic too much. Well, he is the top story in tennis, and he will be until he is done winning majors. Let's move on to Alcaraz. He's been under the radar. Take a look at this. This is something that will help Alcaraz for sure. He's the youngest man since Novak Djokovic to reach the quarterfinal at every Grand Slam. Back to 2008 when Djokovic did that. So that's a pretty nice stat to have. We also have this. Take a look at this one. Time spent on court. Alcaraz, now I know I've been saying he hasn't been tested, but and I think Zverev is a much bigger test than Sonego, however you say his name, Lorenzo Sonego, the Italian, with a big serve, yes. Zverev, a bigger, better serve. Anyways, but this is definitely worth something, right? Carlos is on the bottom of this list. He's been on court for less than 9 hours. Sinner was right about the same until now Sinner's hit about 12 hours on court, I think, after his last match. And then Zverev is all the way at the top, almost 14 hours on court. That definitely will make a difference, about a 5-hour difference in play there. Right? Am I doing the math on that? Yeah, about 5 hours extra on court. 5 hours, that's a brutal long 5-setter, which Zverev just had. He's had a couple of those and one against a qualifier. None of this adds up well, but it comes down to court surfaces. And basically, everyone thought Carlos was going to win everything after Wimbledon. They thought it was the end of the Novak Djokovic era. Then we got a good match at Cincinnati, but the U.S. Open, and of course, the softer, indoor, faster, lower bouncing court season, the indoor season. Alcaraz didn't get the kind of results he was looking for at all, and I think that's why a lot of people have lowered their expectations for him, because this court, the Australian Open, it plays more like those indoor surfaces than the other 3 majors, for sure. You can debate what's the fastest court, the slowest court, who bounces higher and lower, and all these things. Especially with the U.S. Open and the Australian Open, which one's faster? How does the different balls affect it? The bottom line is, I think it's safe to say the Australian Open definitely plays more like those indoor courts. We see Djokovic do so well there from the early days of his career, just like he did going back to 2008 when he won the Australian Open for the first time. So I think that's a big thing. Tennis is a what have you done for me lately sport. And lately, especially on surfaces like this, we haven't seen as much from Alcaraz. But like I said, Alcaraz is setting and breaking records. And he's also got this going for him. He likes the music. He likes the restaurant. Check out this chef. Es un honor para nosotros tener aquí. Eres un buen amigo. La última vez que nos vimos que en Wimbledon, sentimos quien ganó el título on Wimbledon. All right, so he won the title last time. This guy cooked for him. Every meal, this fellow right here was cooking for Carlitos Alcaraz. Nos traer la misma comida especialmente para ti, para darte la misma energía. You got to have the energy so that you can win the Roland Garros, the Wimbledon, and of course the Australian. Anyway, so that's really good news, I think. If you're superstitious, and we know tennis players very commonly are, that's something that's going to help him maybe. Hasn't had that chef cook for him since the greatness at Wimbledon, and now they have been reunited. Maybe that will be enough. But as we're talking about the good things for Carlos Alcaraz, here's a bad thing. Look at this headline. Now, I'll just say it. I'll be blunt. They're accusing him of sexism, I think. Carlos Alcaraz, just like this show, doesn't like women's tennis. No, I'm kidding. We love women's tennis here. Everyone knows that the reason we don't really cover the women's tennis is because it's so much work and effort and energy to cover the men's tennis as well as I try to, that I could never split myself up and try to do as good of a job with women's and men's. It would just, both would sacrifice, I would sacrifice the quality on both. So I just stick with one, the one I know the best, because I've been watching men's tennis more closely than women's tennis since I started watching tennis. But of course I love the women's tennis. So yeah, you see the headline here. I'll put you on the spot. Carlos Alcaraz fails to name a single female tennis player in an awkward interview. Thought this was very, very interesting. Now, I won't play the clip for you, but Jim Courier asked Carlos Alcaraz, who do you like to watch? And he said Djokovic, of course, Medvedev, Sinner. He likes to watch the best players in the world. And then that's when he dropped that bomb on him and said, what about women's tennis? And I think it's a little unfair to Carlos. Carlos froze up, wasn't expecting that one, couldn't come up with a name. And I think, first off, let's just consider that this is not his first language. Medvedev is the best interview on tour. Carlos might be one of the worst just because he kind of struggles with the English language. He does a great job for as young as he is and as new as he is to Inglés. Nadal had a much harder time. He's way better at speaking English in the early days than Rafa was. But I think it's a little unfair to put him on the spot like that and to say that he hates women, or at least that he hates women's tennis. I don't think that's true. And I have a little tip for Carlos Alcaraz. Next time he gets a tough question like that, I'm sure someone's going to follow up with it. One of those people in the disgusting tennis media, they're going to try to get him, just like they tried to get Novak Djokovic a couple times already. Like that one shot they took at Djokovic. Hey, Djokovic, you've been sniffling. You've been blowing your nose. Have you taken a COVID test yet? Would you like to be deported out of Australia again? Yeah. Would you care to comment on that? How does it make you feel? Are you going to blow your nose? Are you going to take a COVID test? Anyway, so I'm sure they're going to hit him again. And I got an easy answer for you, Alcaraz. We're going to get a little more music going. Next time they ask Carlos Alcaraz, who is your favorite female tennis player to watch? The answer is simple. It's Sabalenka. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. Happy to be here with more hair than Brad Gilbert, Darren Cahill, John McEnroe, and Patrick McEnroe, and Andre Agassi all put together. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw. I got a match coming up, so I'm not drinking coffee. I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm drinking Tom Brady water, which I'm sure is very similar to the electrolyte water that Novak Djokovic drinks. But I've been with Tom Brady for a while on the water, so that's what we're drinking before the match. Moments away from playing my match. We got to race through the rest of the show today, but tomorrow we'll have more time to talk about the latest going into the semifinals. Speaking of semifinals, here's another record taken away, ripped out of the hands of our Wilson Federer style racket, holding hands, ripped out of those hands. Another Roger Federer record. It already happened, but it's just getting worse now. The semifinals in Grand Slams, Rafa far behind at 38. Like that's a bad number or something. Incredible 38. 46, incredible. 48 and still counting, even more incredible. But I am a little worried about Jannik Sinner. I have some stats from Djokovic, but since we're in a rush and I don't really want to go into all that, I will say from the stats, Djokovic served very bad in the first set and early in the second set when he got broken. Then the numbers got better after that. And then Fritz lost his legs. I'll go to a comment here. This is from Tuning Into the One for Better Living Right Now. Another rockin' episode, Matt. Nole's spot serving and serve speed plus second serve speed is rising like bagel yeast in full form. Just finished watching Nole Fritzy boy. No bagel Nole and Taylor played high octane for 2 sets, and then the legs were gone. Yeah, Taylor played very well. Djokovic gave him an opportunity there with the bad serving. Probably should have found a way to break and hold and win that without a tiebreak in the first set. But I don't think it would have mattered. I think even if he won those first 2 sets, it still would have been 5-set win for Nole. Novak ends up with more aces than Fritzy. Yeah, incredible. Sasha has to serve lights out to hang with Carlitos. Sasha in 4 or Carlos in 5. Yeah, if it becomes war of attrition, we looked at the time on court already. I think Carlos for sure. I'm still undecided on that match. I just think that Sasha is good here. The surface is not the best, or at least Carlos is more unproven on it. But how can you go against this guy, Carlos? I mean, he's so awesome. I don't know. It's hard to call. The simple answer is Carlos is going to win just because he's got more legs under him, and especially if it goes 5 sets, like Tuning Into the One says here. Anyways, Sinner in 4 or 5, which he did in 3, but they were close enough. Andre had to play lights out. We'll look at a stat on that in a second. Hubie has to serve lights out for a 3, 4, or 5-set win over Medi Teddy Bear. Joker, Sinner, Carlos, Medi is the semifinals. That's what I'm thinking, too, from the beginning, even though I'm talking about that Zverev upset. And also the Hubie upset I'm feeling a little bit. You know, Hubie's under the radar as well, but the bottom line with Hubie is I still find him to be a kind of a choker. He had a chance to beat Carlos in Cincinnati. He got choky at times, and Carlos finds a way to win on a surface kind of like this one where, you know, Hubie should have really had a chance to do it. Looked like he could have done it. Anyways, best from Milan. Thank you. A good comment, a good summary of what happened in the match. We'll skip over these stats. I got this one. Nadal is definitely returning in Doha. At least it looks like. You never know. Nothing is ever definite with Rafa and his health. But it looks like Rafa is back. Now let's look at this. Rublev, one-dimensional. We hear that a lot. His limited tools. Something like that. Tsitsipas once said. This is, you know, last time I said, if you make 10 quarterfinals, you're like a legend. Well, Rublev now has been in 10 quarterfinals. And he is kind of a legend, right? But will he ever win a major? It's not my first pick. Or second, or third, or fourth, or fifth. But he's awesome. We like to watch him. He's a tortured artist. And take a look at this. This was one point made during the broadcast that Rublev really is not changing much. Here are all of his quarterfinals on hard courts in Grand Slams. First serve return points. This is where he's taking it. Not moving much. You know, there's no difference between the red ones and the yellow tennis balls. He's losing 77%. What did he do today? Did he change it up in the match? No, pretty much looks exactly the same. He won a little bit more on first serve, but yeah. So I don't know how much stock I would put in this. Commentators were saying he needs a coach or a stats person on his team to talk about maybe why he might want to try a little bit of Medvedev, as we played that clip yesterday, that Medvedev video where he said he used to return there and he wasn't the best in the world at doing that, and then he backed up and he realized he was very effective from further back. Maybe, you know, Rublev likes to hit big. He likes to take it early and take time away from you. I think that's something he does very well. He is kind of one-dimensional in that regard, but he does it so well. And Robbie Koenig had a great way to describe it. Oh, I can't remember what he said. He called it like beautiful brutality, something like that. A brutal beauty is the way Andre Rublev plays. It's nice strokes to watch, but it's very violent, very brutal. I don't know if this is necessarily the secret. I would say, you know, he's got to put more of a dent on first serve, find a way to get more balls back in play like Medvedev does. So I definitely think it's worth trying. But another thing from that match that was obvious is backhand to backhand. Sinner is just so good on that backhand. Same if you're playing Djokovic, you know, Rublev going backhand to backhand with Sinner or Djokovic. It's really not a good matchup. And one thing they were pointing out, something Dimitrov was doing well in this tournament. I actually had a clip I wanted to show you guys a couple videos ago, but since he lost, you know, by the time I was ready to use that clip, he had just lost, so I cut it and it didn't make it into the show. But I put it in there because it reminded me of the great Roger Federer, and it was when he gets stuck in a backhand exchange, he can knife a slice down the line, and Roger was so good at getting someone to come in there and hit up on the forehand, make it a little short. Next thing you know, and they tend to bring it cross court too. Next thing you know, Roger's got a forehand he's taking early inside the court, busting that up the line. and then he's running you to the other side of the court because he's just gone down the line backhand and up the line forehand. So he's running into the net and he's putting it away at the net. Dimitrov was doing that. I can't remember against who he was playing, but it was a good example of how that can be very effective. And Rublev, not so much, is what the commentators were saying. He needs to be able to go up the line a little bit more in that backhand to bust out of that rally, and then the pattern of backhand to backhand cross court, hard up the line. You get a forehand after that usually, then he can go back onto his usual game plan of murdering forehands, just crushing the ball as hard as he can. I talked about how Alcaraz is a little untested, and hit the music because we got to get out of here pretty soon. Alcaraz has been untested, and tonight he's going to get a test with Sasha Zverev. I guess if I have to make a prediction right now, Alcaraz will win. All right, Alcaraz will win, but I think there's some danger with Sasha Zverev, and I'm very curious to watch that match. Look at Jannik Sinner. He's been untested too. Look at these matches. Yeah, Rublev's kind of a test. Kachanov was kind of a test. Botic, the boatman, Van der Zandt, scoop. A little bit of a test at times, although, watching that match, it didn't feel as close as those 6-4, 7-5, 6-3 score line looks, but definitely those next two rounds, pretty easy. Not the best players, obviously. Sebastian Baez, is that his first name, Sebastian? Still, though, Kachanov and Rublev, bigger tests, and Sinner passed the test pretty well. He crushed him. So I guess my main point there is Sinner not tested as much, hasn't had a tough match yet. Kachanov and Rublev are tougher opponents, and he didn't have too tough of a time with them. Djokovic is going to be very different. He's the biggest test, and at the Australian Open, his favorite place. He's the biggest test we have in tennis. But we'll talk more about the matchup of Djokovic and Sinner tomorrow. As I am becoming a bigger and bigger Djokovic fan, I'm a little nervous about the Sinner matchup. But my bottom line, like with Hooby Dooby being choky, I've yet to see Sinner go in a very tough match, go deep in the match, and not start cramping up in his legs. So we'll see what happens with the cramps. And then finally, let's talk, since this is the match tonight, let's look at this head-to-head of Zverev and Alcaraz. Now, Alcaraz is, anytime he plays him in Madrid, it's a blowout. Alcaraz is going to crush him. On hard courts, Zverev tends to win them. Now, all these you can throw them out. 2021. Zverev wins a couple times on hard courts. Pretty easy, but that's a long time ago. Alcaraz is a lot better since 2021. Even in 2022, Zverev gets him in the French Open after he had just gotten beat by him pretty badly in Madrid. They play again in Madrid a year later, beaten badly. Alcaraz beats him bad. Alcaraz beats him pretty easy in the U.S. Open in 2023. But look at last year's match on a court that's closer to this court than the U.S. Open is, and that's at the Nito Suito ATP Finals, the Nito Suito in Italy Benito Finals. 6-7, 6-3, 6-4. Alcaraz losing 6-3, 6-4 in the second and third, winning the first set in a tiebreak. I think that result kind of, tells you why I've been feeling the way that I have. This court is going to play more like that, and Zverev got him last time on a court like that. What has changed? We've gone through an off season where Alcaraz has done a lot for his fitness. He looks like an absolute beast. He's had easy matches. You could say on one side he hasn't been tested, but on the other side he's definitely going to be fresh, and Zverev has just had some grueling matches. So my bottom line, here I go. I've been dreading this moment. My pick, Carlos Alcaraz wins it in 5 sets. We'll see what happens. I hope I'm not wrong on that. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. Comment below if you want to make fun of me in the middle of the match and I'm horribly wrong after Alcaraz beats the guy in 3 sets. See ya!